Today's speaker is Ken Goldman. He's Senior Vice President and COO of Everbridge. Everbridge is a winner of our Innovation Awards from 2 seasons ago. And Everbridge was founded in the shadow of 9/11 with a focus on mass notification and the ability to deliver messages to hundreds, thousands, even millions of people simultaneously. And given all of the natural disasters that we've had recently, I'm sure Everbridge has been working overtime to get notifications out to everybody. He's going to talk to us today about building a company that has a culture not only of being financially successful, but of saving lives as it's becoming financially successful. Fun fact about Ken, he has met the gloved one, Michael Jackson. He's met Old Blue Eyes, Frank Sinatra. He's met the piano man, Billy Joel, and he had dinner with Bill Clinton. So please join me in welcoming Ken Goldman.
I'm pleased to be able to be here today. SBANE is an organization that I think very highly of. I've had the opportunity to do this once before at a prior breakfast some number of years ago, and I've also had the opportunity to present twice at the SBANE Innovation Awards and win it twice for 2 different companies. My current company, Everbridge, and years ago for a company I was with, Black Duck Software. So when I got the invitation to participate today, I was not only pleased because of who today's sponsor, I'll keep reminding people of that. If you want to bribe me, it's not money, it's cookies. Brownies work well, though, too. But Everbridge is an interesting company. I joined the company just about 3 years ago, and I've always described myself as a capitalist. For me, it's about making money for companies, making money for our shareholders. Providing employment is secondary, but it really hasn't been about the mission until I got to Everbridge. This is the first company I've been at in my 36-year career where I really can talk to people about that the mission is as important as making money, although I always remind my employees that I am the CFO, so don't forget that part. So today I want to talk to you about how to build a great company, and I think we've done that makes money, saves lives, and gives employees a strong sense of purpose. And that strong sense of purpose is even more important today as employees have a choice in what they pick as their place of employment. So most of you who are in business understand that the requirements to build a great business start with, is the addressable market for the product large enough? Do we have enough of a strategic competitive advantage to be successful? Do we have enough capital to run the business before we run out of money and fall off the cliff? Is the economy such that it can support what we're trying to do? And can we thrive in an up market and survive in a down market? And can we get enough of the right people to achieve success? At Everbridge, 80% of our expenses are people related. So we're a $100 million company, $80 million of what we spend, of our expenditures, of our budget, are for people-related costs. So in addition to running finance, I'm also responsible for human resources, and we always talk about HR in our company about attracting, retaining, and motivating. Attracting good talent, retaining them. It doesn't do us any good if they walk in the front door and walk out the back door, and motivating them. And that motivation is particularly important because we have 600 employees today, and as I constantly remind people, if I could get another hour of productivity out of all of our employees each week, that's 20 minutes a day, that adds up to an additional 15 people. That's 15 free headcount if people just are 20 minutes more productive. Not even necessarily putting in 20 minutes more time each day, but 20 minutes more productive. If I could get an extra hour a day, that's another 75 people. And because we are a headcount-related business, we want to get the most out of our employees. We want them to have a life. We want them to enjoy working, but at the end of the day, we're a business as well. So today I'm going to talk about the concept of a double bottom line. And I was pleased when I Googled double bottom line. Google is the answer to everything. And you'll see that there were 37,800,000 results for the term double bottom line. And although, as my daughter told me when she went to college, she's now 28, so she successfully graduated, but when she went to college, she was told by her first professor, Wikipedia is not an authoritative source. But that said, it was a perfect quote for this. Double bottom line seeks to extend conventional bottom line, again, hard for me, who's both a CFO and a CPA, to measures beyond fiscal performance by adding a second bottom line to measure their performance in terms of positive social impact. And in Everbridge, we have a positive social impact, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and why it matters to our employees. So, about Everbridge, 3,500 enterprise customers, adjusted EBITDA positive. For those of you who are not accountants, it means that we're profitable, but not necessarily if you looked at our financial statements. 8 enterprise applications we sell mostly to organizations, but those organizations can include state and local government, hospitals, healthcare, and corporations. We sell into a $40 billion market opportunity, which is good. I said before, in order to be successful, you have to have a large enough total addressable market. For me, as a classically trained CFO, the chart on the right, in terms of revenue, 37% compound annual growth rate. I always joke that someday I'll write a book and the title will be Up and to the Right, because that's what you want to see in terms of financial results. And we had a successful IPO on September 16th of 2016. In fact, we were one of, I believe, 2 New England tech companies to go public last year. And it feels good to be able to represent New England as a successful public company. So if you're known by the company that you keep, in our case, we have 9 of the top 10 investment banks as customers. We have 6 of the largest automakers as customers, 6 of the largest global consulting firms, all 4 of the big 4 CPA firms, 4 of the top 10 healthcare providers, 4 of the top 10 health insurers, all 25 of the top 25 airports. Funny story about that. Until 6 months ago, we only had 24 of the top 25 airports. Embarrassingly enough, the one that we were missing was Boston Logan Airport. Boston tends to do things differently. We finally convinced them that they should join us. And 9 of the top 10 cities. In addition to 9 of the top 10 cities, we also have the entire Washington, D.C. capital region, which is the capital and the 25 cities and towns surrounding the capital. The state of Connecticut, we just won last year the state of Florida, which came in very handy during the most recent hurricanes. And we just won both the state of New York and the city of New York. And so business is good and continues. Ours is a somewhat perverse business because the more bad things that happen in the world, the better our business is. In fact, we got accused during our IPO roadshow. The week of our roadshow, there was a hurricane on the West Coast, a hurricane on the East Coast, and there was a shooting event in Colorado. And people said, did you wait for all of this to happen before you went public? And we said, no, unfortunately, it happens every single week. So I'm going to play a short video for you that'll help tell the story of Everbridge.
Flooding has already begun. It's already largely flooded.
I got a hand waiver last time I counted.
And this is an active shooting.
Witnesses describe an apocalyptic scene.
When bad things happen, how do businesses, government agencies, and other organizations keep their people safe and their operations up and running? They rely on Everbridge. Everbridge provides enterprise software that helps organizations assess critical events and organize the response to keep people safe and businesses running. Whether it's life-threatening situations, major events, or day-to-day operations, our software automates the key steps for responding to a critical event. It aggregates threat data so customers can assess risks. It locates people in areas of threat and those with the skills and availability to respond. It lets customers execute their standard operating procedures to organize the right response with contextual messages when minutes really count. Then, the platform sends out notifications and instructions via text, voice, email, digital signage. Over 100 modalities in 15 languages.
The beauty of IT alerting is having a consistent, predictable, repeatable process with timely and relevant communications. And Everbridge facilitates every single piece of that.
More than 3,000 enterprise customers around the world use Everbridge, including many industry leaders.
Sony Pictures Entertainment tells CNN.
Remember the Sony hacking scandal? We helped them recover their operations when normal channels were compromised.
Most Sony employees were on the Everbridge system. If he had to do it again, CEO Michael Linton said he would have made it mandatory.
During Hurricane Sandy, hundreds of organizations relied on Everbridge. One large professional services firm used Everbridge to organize its New York-based workforce, helping thousands of employees figure out whether to return to work or work remotely. Keeping employees safe is more complicated than ever because of an increasingly mobile and global workforce. Fences and locks are no longer sufficient when people are not in the building. We have leveraged our platform to create a new product, Safety Connection, to directly take advantage of this trend. Safety Connection enables companies to dynamically identify, instruct, and confirm the safety of people who might be in harm's way, no matter where they are. Everbridge, helping keep people safe and businesses running.
I didn't have brownies to give away, so that was the best thing I could come up with. So, every second of every day, 56 people somewhere in the world receive an Everbridge message. Last year, we delivered 1.5 billion messages. During the most recent hurricanes in Florida, we delivered 50 million messages to residents. And so we have an impact. With the California wildfires last week, these are some messages that we got back from some of the residents. So thankful for the updates. I'm in San Diego and my mother lives there alone. Thanks for making this bilingual. My daughter lives in San Diego too, and she gets worried for the updates to give us both peace of mind. We share this with our employees every single day. This is what starts to give our employees a sense of purpose. So during Hurricane Matthew, the state of Florida used us to protect the residents of the state. We have a solution that is used by hospitals that allow them to assess stroke victims as they're being transported to the hospital, and the difference can be with the stroke victim recovering and walking out of the hospital or turning into a vegetable. And every day we're involved in helping people recover lost parents, lost children, et cetera. Again, some of the success stories that we hear, in this case, a missing autistic child was found using our system. And it happened within minutes. Florida, as I said, used us with the hurricanes. Same thing with Texas, same thing with Louisiana. Escaped inmate found with our system. Find another missing child, literally every single day. So if you go to our website and you go to the recruiting section of our website, you'll see our employees talking about why they come to Everbridge, why they work at Everbridge. Back to what I said about attract, retain, and motivate. The fact that we have this double bottom line, the fact that we have a sense of purpose. I wanted to join a company that made a difference at Everbridge, selling a product that helps people, Ben Potter. I was really inspired by Everbridge's mission. It's important to me to be doing work that makes a difference in people's lives. Tech companies that saves lives are rare. On the intrinsic value scale, that's hard to top. We help in life and death situations. That's so rewarding to all of us. And so on and so forth. So in addition to doing this for our customers who are paying customers, we also do it on a pro bono basis. So for instance, recently what happened in Texas, some of the communities did not have our system. We ended up reaching out to them during the middle of the weather events, and we helped them pro bono. Likewise in California. I'm not sure that our shareholders would be happy about that, but we think it's the right thing to do, and we think ultimately if you do the right thing, it will come back to you. So one of the organizations that we support on a pro bono basis is an organization called Team Rubicon. Team Rubicon is a really interesting organization from the standpoint that they take former military and make them into first responders in situations like hurricanes and wildfires, and they use their military skills and military training to help do things like put Puerto Rico back together again. And so it's a very worthwhile organization. They have tens of thousands of former military who volunteer their time, but coordinating the efforts of all of those people, they need our system to be able to communicate with them. And so not only do we feel good about participating, but Jeremiah Kunze, who is a team manager at Everbridge, is also a Team Rubicon volunteer. And in fact, he came to me last year and said, I would like time to spend trying to do beyond my daily job and beyond supporting their use of Everbridge. Can I get paid time off? And we agreed to provide paid time off for him and for other Everbridge employees to participate. And as a matter of fact, this is from his Facebook page. So he's not only proud to be an Everbridge employee, he's proud of being a Team Rubicon volunteer. This one is still in process, so it's a little bit of an early release, but we're helping another organization based here locally called All Hands Volunteers. Again, an organization that takes resources to help rebuild after events like hurricanes and wildfires and help bring people's lives back together. So interestingly enough, when I was researching for the subject of this idea of a double bottom line or sense of purpose, I came across this study from PwC that said millennials are 5.3 times more likely to stay when they have a strong connection to the employer's sense of purpose, and non-millennials are 2.3 times more likely. Yet only 27% of business leaders help employees connect their own purpose to that of the company. So we talk about this all the time with our employees, but we make sure that they never forget. So if you walk into any Everbridge office around the world, and we have, at this point, 8 of them, you'll see what this looks like as a tree of life, making a difference every day. And in the little circles are stories about some of our customers and the real-life situations that we have been involved in. If you walk into our new Global Operations Center, which is on the 3rd floor of our office at 25 Corporate Drive in Burlington, this is a reminder of some of the key words that people have to think about. Active shooter, keeping businesses running, keeping people safe, extreme reliability, minutes matter. In fact, this is the hallway where these stories are replicated. And so, for instance, we were there front and center when the Boston Marathon bombing happened. We were there front and center when hurricanes happened. We work with basically about 40% of the major hospitals in the country, and they use us for critical care. Finding lost children, we see that literally every week. And if you go to our website, we talk about the fact that we're proud of our mission. We're proud of the fact that we help keep people safe and businesses running. And so we focus on that. And we make sure that employees understand that their work matters. So what does this mean in terms of the reality of building a successful business that has that double bottom line? We make the culture and the mission an important consideration at the beginning of the conversation. When we first start recruiting a candidate, the recruiter will talk about the mission before they talk about the job. They'll talk about how would you like a job where you can actually make a difference. Interviewers continue to emphasize it throughout the interviewing process because we think it gives us a strategic competitive advantage in hiring. And once hired, it's brought up in the first day orientation as well as a 3-day orientation that we give called the Bridge to Everbridge. People ask me all the time, I spend about probably 35-40% of my time talking to investors, and they always ask me the, Ken, what keeps you awake at night question? And interestingly enough, it's not the stock market, it's not the economy as much as it is the ability to hire people. Our success next year is predicated on our ability to hire between now and December 31st, 2018, 275 more employees. And every single one of them is a challenge, not because we're not a good employer, not because we don't pay at market, but just because we're competing against Facebook, Amazon, we're competing against HubSpot, we're competing against lots of great companies that all have great benefits, all provide a sense of a job that people find interesting. But I would go up against Facebook or Amazon any single day in terms of our sense of purpose versus theirs, even though I'm a huge customer of both. So ongoing, we remind every employee every day the mission is the message. Employees do work harder because they know what they do makes a difference. During the recent weather events, we had triple teams working 24 hours a day. We were literally setting up cots in the office so that they could be there to make sure that our customers were being served and that systems didn't fail anybody. For us, during Hurricane Matthew, we had to deliver 10 million messages simultaneously to people telling them either to shelter in place or to get out. What we've learned, and lots of companies have this, slogans, t-shirts, free lunch, free beer do not make a culture. Everybody talks about their culture, but not everybody actually does it well. Employees need to understand where they sit in the hierarchy of priorities. Customers, employees, shareholders. Those are the 3 constituent groups that we serve every single day. But if I don't keep my employees happy, the rest will suffer. And if we do this right, we do attract the best talent, we retain them, and employees are motivated to perform. I'm always pleased when I get the statistic as to what our turnover is, and it's below the industry average. Now, I don't want to lose any employees, but the reality is that people do move on for the right purposes. And with that, I know I talk a lot. I tend not to breathe when I talk, so I can now take a breath. And I'd love to get some questions from the audience if we have time, because I want this to be interactive. Do I have a minute? Okay. Yes. Yes. So interestingly enough, for instance, one of the things that we do, I talk about active shooter. Unfortunately, we're involved in active shooter situations all the time. So when we send you a message, if you're in our building at 25 Corporate Drive and if the active shooter's on the 4th floor, the message that we send you is location dependent. So it's not just that there's an active shooter in the building. It is that there's an active shooter on the 4th floor in the east corridor. But when we send you that message, we actually ask you the question, are you okay? Do you need help? Are you out of the building? And we can send that message to 1 person, to 10 people, or 10 million people. So the fact that we can send the message and get the answer back as to, are you okay? Do you need help? What's your situation? We actually have a product that's used by Mass General Hospital for staffing. So very simply, Mass General Hospital needs 40 nurses this Saturday morning from 8 until 4. And so they have, say, 1,000 nurses who are on staff. They have to go staff that shift. The problem is they can't just send out a mass email to all 1,000 nurses and say, first 40 to take the shift, you've got it. Because first of all, they need some cardiac care nurses, they need some neonatal intensive care nurses, they need some anesthesiology nurses. But what adds to the complexity is they're unionized. So they have to offer the shift in order of union seniority. So they have to offer it to number 1, then they have to wait for number 1 to say, I'm going to take it or I'm not, then to number 2. And by the way, we can notify those people for the staffing via text, via email, via voicemail, via phone. And so if it's via phone, they get an interactive voice response message to say, this is nursing staffing. It's an automated message. Do you want to take the shift from 8 to 4? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, or press 3 to speak to the nursing supervisor. So 2 things. Number 1 is oftentimes there's an incident commander, and that incident commander can be a public safety official, or it can be, in a corporation, it may be the security department or human resources department who's running the event, and they can run that event on their desktop, on their laptop, on their cell phone, or by dialing into an 800 number and say, we have an active shooter in the building. I had to run out without my cell phone, but we need you to send notification to all of our 1,000 employees in the building. The other thing is that we have automated feeds. So for instance, if you are a small town in the Midwest and there's a tornado bearing down on your town, we're tied into the National Weather Service, and you set up certain parameters that say, when the tornado is within 20 miles, and if it's coming down this path, notify these people to get down to their storm shelters, notify these people to be on the lookout, and just make sure these other people are aware that there's a weather event and to stay out of that area. And that automated response is critically important, not only for citizens, but also, for instance, Home Depot, Lowe's, companies like that use us to notify store managers so that they can get outside inventory indoors and prevent $500,000 of inventory loss.
There's that wonderful story of Ernest Shackleton that got all those men back from the South Pole about 100 years ago.
He didn't use Everbridge, I'm sorry. I wish.
I think he advertised low pay, very dangerous, and he was overwhelmed with that one, because it was very exciting. But one of the things along the way was, when things got rough, is he made sure that the officers somehow ended up with the lighter sleeping bags, and the rank and file got 3 sleeping bags. And, he was committed to getting the entire team back, no matter what. And what are the parallels, sort of the intersections that you see between what Everbridge is doing and what that example 100 years ago might provide?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that, again, from our employees' perspective, they recognize that there are times that they're missing time with family, they're missing other commitments, but they realize that what they're doing is oftentimes life or death. You know, we sell a system that has to work. And in fact, we sell against, any business that's good, you have competitors. We have lots of competitors. but we're the only public company in the space. We're the only company of our size, and we're actually twice as expensive as most of our competitors. So why do people spend twice as much money with us as they can for another solution? Because I used the analogy when we were doing our IPO roadshow. When you're buying a bulletproof vest, do you want to buy the cheapest or do you want to buy the best? The reality is that we have to work. So everything we do has triple redundancy. We sell to 4 nines of reliability, 99.99%, but we actually run to 5 nines of reliability, 99.999%. Because if our system fails, somebody could die. And so people understand that. So it's not just the mission, it's the understanding that my job is not just I show up and if the server goes down, somebody doesn't get to buy their widget from Amazon. If the server goes down, something bad may happen to people. So in the case of state and local government, 2 things. Number 1 is we get what's referred to as reverse 911 data. So anybody who has a landline, we automatically get their information. We also have opt-ins. So for instance, during the wildfires in California, we had about 10,000 people an hour opting in to get the messages. So you can sign up online, you can send a text message to opt in. Interestingly enough, we have a product called Community Engagement. So if you went to the inauguration, which is claimed to be the biggest inauguration, but we won't go there. If you went to the papal visit in Washington, D.C. or Philadelphia, if you went to Super Bowl, if you went to Mardi Gras, you would see signs that say, for up to the moment information, text SB50 to 888-777 or text inauguration 888-777. You then get registered in our system and you get up-to-the-minute information about parking, about traffic, about other things that are happening. But the real reason that those venues use our solution is if something bad happened, the ability to communicate with you and say, there's a shooter. Ironically, what happened in Las Vegas, they were a customer, they didn't use the solution at the time it happened. So it's based on population. So for instance, when you look at something like the state of Florida or the state of New York, it's based on the number of residents, and we build into that how many people should eventually use the system. We try to make it so that it's not more expensive the more people you have using it. We want people to use this. We don't want, for instance, a company like Amazon to say, well, we're only going to protect the executives. We don't really care about the rank and file. We want our customers to use it to protect all of their employees. And I didn't point it out, but about 50% of our customers are corporate, 35% state and local government, and 15% hospitals and healthcare.
How do you handle when infrastructure goes down? Like when you think about the wildfires with cell towers burning out, or in Florida, a lot of power was knocked out.
So we talk about 100 different modalities of being able to communicate with people. So first of all, when critical events happen, typically we're communicating with people long before it actually happens. And the thing is, we have the ability to communicate in this room. If the hotel was a customer, they could communicate with you via cellular, they could communicate with you via the fire alarm annunciation system, they could communicate with you via Wi-Fi. So we have multiple ways to get to you if one means of communication is down. The reality is if you were on the island of Barbuda, where everything was wiped out, we probably couldn't connect you unless you had a sat phone. But what we commit to is we commit to deliver to those 100 different modalities. If at the end of the day, you're not near anything, if you're in the middle of the forest and you don't have a cell phone, then at that point, that's beyond our responsibility. It's not that we don't want to, but you have to be connected somehow. But those 100 different modalities allow us various means to get past that. Okay, what if cellular's down? What if Wi-Fi? Interestingly enough, for instance, at the time of the Boston Marathon bombing happened, if any of you were in Boston at the time and tried to make a cellular call, you may have found that the systems were they seemed like they were down. What happened was that they were overloaded, but there's actually a prioritization in terms of who gets to use the system. So first priority goes to the President of the United States, second priority goes to the Department of Homeland Security, third priority goes to Everbridge and others deemed as critical infrastructure. So we get priority to deliver a phone call or to use the cellular system over you calling a loved one, and because we've been designated critical infrastructure.
When I asked you a question about polling, what I was referring to specifically is like the polls that occurred last year during the presidential election? Do you do any of that?
No, the reality is we try to keep it to, not that that's not critical, but we try to keep it to life or death or things that keep the business running. So what we're trying to stay away from is a notification that your Uber is going to be late, that your Amazon package is being delivered. To us, that's a more routine type of message delivery. And the problem with that is it's not mission critical. And what we're concerned about is if we deliver those messages to you, you're going to ignore the one about saying the building's on fire. Because you can say, oh, another message from Everbridge, and it seems somewhat like spam. So that's why we stay away from those. Okay, thank you.